To show you here how to use the feature for tenant completed periodic or renewal inspections or anything else where you're trying to capture data from the tenants mid-lease. And this is an example of how to do that. And this is specifically targeted at people who are not syncing with other software. So your property data and tenant data is not syncing from somewhere else. You should be entering it manually here as you go. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is click on properties. So I'm going to hit properties, and then you're going to create your property. So whenever everything is based on properties in zInspector, and then you inspect essentially against those properties. So I'm going to type in my street address and my city and state, and this works just fine for single family homes. You can use that multifamily button, create multifamily properties here too, but most time for multifamilies, you're going to want to import a spreadsheet or use one of our syncing tools. All right, so here I'm going to hit add areas. Now areas are the essentially what makes up a property. So we're going to put in the number of bedrooms and bathrooms, and then you can choose what other additional areas you want to have. Now you can change these defaults by going into settings, admin settings, area details, and there's a column there for single family defaults. And that's what sets what this list here looks like. All right, so here I'm going to go to next, and now I can preview that area list. If you know them, you want to enter in descriptions for at least your bedrooms and bathrooms. We don't require that for your periodic renewal inspections because you may not have that information. So you might say entry or master or something like that. So if you know that information, great. For at least your bedrooms and bathrooms, you can't put descriptions everywhere. The area number column, just ignore that. The area group column, that essentially controls the sort order. So that's what that's doing there for you. Okay, so hit create, and now I've got that property on my account. I'm going to back out the filter there, and you can see all the properties here on my account. All right, now turnover, that's where you have your actual tenant data. So if I hit clear there, I can make sure I can have no filters, and so show all my data. Now, we're going to do what we do is create a lease. So you're like, oh, I already have a lease. No, that's the lease is what we call the relationship between your properties and your tenant contact data. That's why we link it all together, and we call that a lease. So here you're going to pick your property, in this case 123 Beach, and I'm just going to pick the lease start date, and so pick that lease start date or type in something different. You can optionally put in the lease end date, and now we're going to hit save and add tenants. Now, as you start having a bunch of tenants in our software, you may have to pick for adding from an existing tenant, so you can just pick from one of those and add them there, or I'm going to hit add new tenant, and here I'm just going to add in the tenant's first name is all that's required. Um, and we'd encourage you to enter in the last name too if you know it or something like that. But really, only the first name is what's going to show up at the most things. But the first and last name may show up on the inspection report, so you may want to put in both of those. Okay, so here I hit save, and now I've got a tenant. So view tenants associated with this lease. So it's still in this lease. Okay, the lease info, that's all the contact, or essentially the summary of when they're renting the property from, start and end and so forth. And I hit save, and I've got now all this here. So again, if I clear the filters, I can see all of my different tenants here. This works even if you have thousands of tenants. That's all here. Now, this setting right there, if you have that unchecked, which is by default, if you have a wide screen at your office, everything will be on one row and it's all searchable. We put that here. You check that. That'll put the tenant names right there in that one row. It works well if you're on a smaller screen. Now, and all these columns here are searchable, so you can just do 123 or beach or anything like that, and it's going to find anything that matches that. Okay, so what we're looking here for is the tenant inspection column. This is for your periodic inspection. So we're going to just basically click invite, and this here is how they're going to actually do an inspection on their own app. Okay, so I'm just going to basically click invite, and then you choose the template that you want to send them. Now choose a tenant periodic inspection, and I'll hit next. Now you can completely customize this welcome email. So you go into here and that'll change your settings. Now you don't need to tell them instructions, how to download the app or anything like that. We're going to provide all the core information about how to download it, how it authenticates. All that information is there for them automatically. You're basically looking to customize this if you want to do something more personal, but it'll automatically fill in their first name, property, address, things like that. Okay, now you also can set the daily reminders. You can change those defaults, the reply address, BCC address, things like that for notifications, and those are all here under settings. But here I'm just going to go and click invite. Okay, and that invitation has been sent. So you can see here it says invited. This is all searchable here as well. So I could say, hey, show me everything that's invited, or as things are starting to be completed by tenants, they'll say submitted or expired if they didn't complete it. And that's all searchable there too, so you can quickly get a snapshot of everything that's going on. There's other videos here to help out around this feature, but that should be everything you need to get started. Take care.